Hello! I did a recent video on baggy clothing, and then I got a question on that from Alicia that says, I wondered if you talk about your experience with fear, not food related fear, but general persistent level of anxiety that causes you to fear irrational and unlikely events. I always thought it was just who I was, but now I've recovered. I found I'm no longer fearful of things on a daily basis, and I thought I'd see if you had any thoughts on this matter. Some examples I can think of are fear of being home alone, being attacked, of the ocean, of animals, of other people, fear of flying, fear of car crashes, fear of getting sick or dying, fear of someone I love getting sick or dying, fear of things falling on me or falling down the stairs, fear of just about bloody anything. I was sort of just feeling of impending doom, constantly high alert and constantly scared. I've had anxiety before and this wasn't anxiety. I was paranoid. I'd love to know what you think, or and anyone can relate. So I think what Alicia said there about constantly on high alert and constantly scared, that's our clue. Think about it from your brain's point of view. If your body and brain consistently do not have enough fuel, don't have enough resources, then that indicates to your brain that you're in an environment of resource scarcity. An environment of resource scarcity is never good. Think about, if resources are scarce, whatever the resources, if it's food, if it's water, if it's shelter, whatever it is, it means that you're at competition with all other living things for those resources. That's massively stressful. And so being in energy deficit, restricting food, creating the illusion to your brain that there's famine in the environment, that there's unrest in the environment, that you're in an environment of resource scarcity, is going to put your brain in a state of being like, wow, we're in apocalyptic times here and we have to be on the lookout. It's a bit like America right now, honestly, because I think a lot of people in America's brains are getting fried. But it's so, and that's legit, because the environment feels a bit sketchy out here. And so you create that environment via restriction as far as your brain's concerned. So that is why your brain's going to be on high alert, much more anxious, because your brain's like, it's a shit show out there, we got to stay on our toes. Now, looking at it from your body's point of view, your body is also being put in a position of biological stress. And by biological stress, what I mean is your body is biologically stressed out. So that's because it doesn't have enough fuel. So, if you have a car and you're driving the car and it runs out of fuel, and just before it runs out of fuel, it's kind of like not doing very well. That's what your body's like. Apart from your body isn't a car, it's a body. So unlike a car, it can actually steal fuel from other places and keep itself going. But it doesn't like doing that, because that means that it's just under-resourcing different systems within itself. It's cannibalizing itself. That's really stressful, because your body's like, we can't keep doing this, this is bad. And biological stress can affect every single system in your body. And so think about all of the systems and all of the organs and all the stuff in your body. And it's all just a bit stressed out. It's just under too much pressure. It's like working in an office. I don't know if you've ever worked somewhere where there's just not enough people to do the job. I worked in a pizza place once that was like that. And I also worked in like a fast food burger thing. When I had an eating disorder, I was obsessive about working in food related environments, of course. And I worked in this fast food place. We were always understaffed. That was mostly because the owner was too tight to actually hire enough people, because, paying wages and all that. But then we'd get like completely thrashed at around 6 p.m. and it would be massively stressful. Tons of orders, queues of people, be making these burgers, slipping around on a greasy floor. And that's the example of working in an environment where there's just too much to do and too few people, and you're massively stressed about it. Well, if you're restricting food, that is your body. There's just too much to do and there's not enough fuel, and your body is trying its best and it's working to the max, but it's massively stressed about it. So that's what I mean by biological stress. Not eating enough food creates massive biological stress for your body. And so if you think about that, so then you've got the psychological stress. Oh, I hate the word psychological. You know what I mean? Your brain believing that you're in an environment of resource scarcity. An environment of resource scarcity means that everybody's out to fuck you over, and that's stressful. And then you've got the biological stress of your body not having enough fuel to do its job, and that's massively stressful because it's got to keep trying to do its job anyway. And you add those things to get two things together. Do you think it's any wonder that you're kind of a hyper alert, fearful, anxious person? No. And for those of us that were just sort of vile people when we have an eating disorder, like me, I was a super bitch. I was not a nice person to be around. I was just miserable. And then, you know, people must have sort of, who knew me, might be like, why is she so miserable the whole time? I'm like, of course I was miserable. Like, my body was under a massive amount of stress. My brain thought we were in a famine. So if you expect me to be skipping around with a smile on my face, of course I was bloody miserable. Now, these days, believe it or not, I'm actually much less miserable. And in terms of stress, oh my God, the things I used to freak out about when I had an eating disorder. Hit the roof. Anything slightly went wrong, hit the roof. It could be, like, if I got stuck in a traffic jam, fucking hell, like, you would not want to see that. I remember one time I was stuck in a traffic jam. It was probably going to make me about 3 minutes late, honestly. 3 minutes late for wherever I was going. I was like having hysterics at the wheel. I was hitting the wheel, I was hitting the car, I was screaming and crying. That is not a normal thing to do. That is not normal person behaviour. God, can you imagine people next to me in traffic jam probably looking at me and be like, whoa, what the fuck is wrong with that bitch? I was crazy. And I was crazy because my body and my brain were under a huge amount of stress because I wasn't eating enough food. Do you know what happens now if I'm in a traffic jam? I listen to a podcast, quite enjoy it. I'm like, oh good, I'm going to be a bit late. I don't think that really, but you know, I actually quite like, I'm like, oh good, I get to sit around for a little bit longer. I can listen to the end of this podcast. It's just not, I can't even imagine getting massively stressed about that sort of thing anymore. But I know that I did. I was the same person. That was the same person. That was me getting massively stressed, having hysterics about a traffic jam. And this is good. I get to listen to a podcast a little bit longer. Same person. What's the difference? I eat a load of food now. That's the difference. I'm no longer in an energy deficit. So there is hope. If you are a super bitch, if you're a super stressed person, you start eating, get out of energy deficit, recover,